Hello and welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial I want to show you an alternative way to control a car. So for this we are using our state machine and the interact interface from other tutorials. I put the link in the description. So first of all, let's go to our third person character, and we need two variables here. So the first one will be the state, and this comes from our state machine. Great, and I put the states to normal and drive. And another one will be the vehicle. The vehicle will be a sedan object reference in this case. So I delete a few things. So as you can see, we just have the mouse input, the jump function and the move input, nothing else. And at the sedan part here, we have just the steering input, the throttle input, and the handbrake input. So the idea is that we control the car, but we are not processing the car. So we just use the functions of the car. So let's remove this input axis, so input actions in this case, and let's create a custom ones. So add custom event, and this will be the steering as in customer event. Of course, we need an input for the steering itself. This will be a float value, and we just connect it. We do the same thing for the throttle. So add custom event, and this will be the throttle. Same thing, we create an input as well, like that, and connect it. And the same thing for the handbrake, like that. And of course we need here an input. This will be in Boolean. And the good part is we can delete this part here, and we just connect this here, so it's easier. So that's it. The other thing that we will using is, as I said, the interact interface. So we go to the class settings of the sedan and search for the interact interface and add it up here like that. Great. So the next part is we go back to our third person character, and we have to modify these default functions here. So we can keep the mouse input because that's okay. But this one here, so the jump action, will be also the handbrake. So we have to move this up here. If you want, you can of course rename this, but I just keep it to make it easier. And we put this right behind here and disconnect it. So we take our vehicle, say get, and say is valid with a question mark, and on press, and the same thing is on release, like that. Now we go from the vehicle here and say handbrake, that's the function that we created, and if it's valid, of course, we go to the handbrake. If it's not valid, we go to the jump function, and down here we do the same thing. If it's valid, we go to the handbrake. If not, we go to the stop function, and the handbrake will be true, of course, on pressed, and false if it's released. So we have to do this with the movement input as well. So we have the move forward and move right, and we do the same thing. We take out our vehicle, ask if the vehicle is valid with a question mark, like that. So if it's valid, we call the throttle function, like that. If not, we call the add movement input, and we go from the axis value into the throttle input. Same thing down here, like that. So is valid. And in this case, because we have to move right, so we go from the vehicle and say steering If it's valid, we call the steering. If not, and we put the access value inside here. Great. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Of course, we have to set the target. Great. So we are done here. So what we need now is we need our interact input. So we go to the project settings, input, and we create a new action map for interact. Let's say E, like this. Go back to the third person character and say interact, like this. On here, we go from the vehicle again and say is valid, like this. Then we say get overlapping actors and select the actor. From here we say for each loop with break. If it's not valid, we go to the loop. If it's valid, we go down here and say interact message, like this, and we will connect the vehicle with the target, like this one. Up here, we go from the array element and say does implement interface, and we select our interact interface, like this one. We need a branch, of course, to ask if it's true. Again, we call the interact message. If not, we do nothing, of course. We connect the array element with the target and go back to the break. So that's our interact function here. Compile and save this. And now we can finally go to the sedan, and we say interact. But in this time, we will call the event interact, this one here. As you can see, it's from the interact interface, so that's great. So first of all, we say get player porn. Then we cast to the third person character, in my case. Whatever you're using, you should use this one. Connect it. Then we go from the as third person character and say get vehicle. From the vehicle again, we say is valid and execute this one here. Then we want to set the vehicle, so we go from the third person character and say set vehicle. If it's valid, we want to set it to nothing. If it's not valid, we want to set it to the vehicle itself. So we get the reference to self, this will be the vehicle, and otherwise the third person character is the target. After this, we go again from the third person character and set the state in both cases. Up here, we want to set it back to normal. Down here, we want it to the drive state, like this. Then again, from here, we want to set actor enable collision. Down here, we want to disable the collision. Again, from the third person character, we want to attach an actor to actor. The parent will be again a reference to self, so we can use this one here. So now we need a socket name, and we set up the location rules and the rotation and the scale rule. So we keep this keep world, snap to target, and disable this boolean down here. So we open up our sedan skeleton, this one here, and we need a socket. So we go to the vehicle base and say add socket. This is a test socket, like this one. Pull it up here, right to the driver's seat, like that. So let's copy this one here, go back to the sedan, and put the socket name right here. Great. So up here, we go again from the third person character and want to detach from actor, connect it. We set it to keep world, and keep world. Again, from the third person character, we want to set actor enable collision again. This time, of course, we want to enable the collision. And the last thing is we want to set the actor location. And we want to check the teleport. And now we need a new location. To make this easy, we want to create an box collision. In this case, let's call this driver box like this, and we pull it beside the driver door right here. So now we take this driver box here, say get world location, and this will be the new location of the character. Compile and save this. So when we interact with the car, he checks if it's the third person character, then he checks is the vehicle valid. If it's not valid, then he sets the vehicle, go to the driver state for the character, disable the collision and attach it to the car if it's valid. So it set the vehicle to nothing, go back to normal state, so we get out of the car, detach the character from the car, enable collision again, and set it to beside the car. Great. So the rest can still the same. Let's see if it works. So the last part that we have to set is we go to the animation blueprint, this one here, and what we need is we need a reference to our state machine, so we create a variable called state and set it again to our state machine, like this one. Then we want to set the state. So in this case, we go from try get pawn owner down here, calls to our third person character, down here, get the state of the third person character and connect it with the state inside the animation blueprint. Like this one here. Then we open up the animation graph, the default graph here, go from the idle and create another state. This will be driving, back to the idle, open up the driving, put inside this one driving animation, put the link in the description for this one. And then we just go from the idle to driving. When we take out our state here, ask if it's equal for an enumeration. When we go from idle to driving, of course, we ask for the driving state. And otherwise, when we go back to the idle, we ask for the normal state. Great. So let's see if this works. When we hit play, we can run around. So we have to place the seeding inside the world here. So let's take our seeding here, put it right here. We get beside the car, press E. We are setting in the car. We can control the car. And when we now press E again, we control the character again, can walk around and can repeat that. Great. So this is an alternative way to control the car. So you still the third person character, you don't possess the car, but you can control the car. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial. If you have any questions, please let me know, and yeah, goodbye.